Right. All right. We are going live. Hey, happy Sunday night. What's happening, Abby? How are you?
Hi. Amazing. How are you?
I'm awesome. Are you ready to rock another
I am.
installment of KloobySnacks? This is kind of like a milestone because it's number 20. And the next, milestone that we're going to get to is of course 26 when we close out the section that we're in right now. Section we call section or of course Baker's Dozens. By now, hopefully you guys know out there we got 52 KloobySnacks. It's broken into 4 Baker's Dozens. 13 times 4 is 52. So we started with the loving flavored Baker's Dozen, 1 through 13, and now we're in ego flavored. Tonight is snack number 20, so it fits within the 14 through 26 that make up the ego flavored Baker's Dozens. And then we'll move on to discipline flavored, then integrity flavored to close out the year. But we're inching our way towards halfway through the year. It's all going by so fast. What are you excited about this week, Abby?
We're getting closer to graduation every day.
Oh, do I need to add you to the stage? There you are.
There I am. I know. I went away for a second.
Okay.
Every day is just a day closer to graduation, and we're really like finishing out the year, and it's a weird feeling, but it's so exciting, and I'm so excited to graduate. And yeah, that's all I can really think about. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, do you have anything else that you want to say or share or ask before we get into tonight's, the review of the KloobySnacks in the current section before we read tonight's snack?
no, I think that is all for now.
All right. Well, here we go. I almost feel like in honor of number 20, we'll do the whole thing, but no. I'm just going to start with number 14. So when we got into the ego flavored, which is where we are, this Baker's Dozens, ego flavored is surrender is not the same thing as defeat, coming in at number 14. Then number 15, ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response, which is closely related to number 16. Our judgments are an aggressive form of ego defense, in the ego flavored Baker's Dozen, we talk a lot about ego, sense of self. And so you got, I like those two back to back, right? Ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response. And then our judgments are the fight part of the fight or flight, like an aggressive form of ego defense. This is fun. The first part's familiar. You cannot laugh at others unless you can laugh at yourself. But the KloobySnack part is, and if you love laughing at others, perhaps it's because you don't love yourself. We always want to look within. That's what most of these snacks, if not all of them, are trying to help us do. We want to make it easy and fun to look within. It's always the last place we look, or usually the last place we look. All right. Number 18, we are usually guilty of the accusations we project onto others. Again, along the theme of, judging and projecting when we really just need to look within. Mm-hmm. And then last week, we got to asking questions does not reveal our intelligence nearly as much as failing to ask will. Now, let me go ahead and get me ready visually for that. Brings us to tonight's snack. Any comments or questions based on that review of the snacks that we've covered so far in the ego flavored Baker's Dozen?
No.
All right. Well, here we go. So that brings us to, drum roll, please. Tonight's snack is number 20, and it's about the curse of knowledge. And I'll go ahead and I'll share the screen and we'll pull up the PDF version of KloobySnacks, and then we'll get ready to rock and roll. You ready, Abby?
Ready as ever.
Okay, cool. All right, so here it is, everyone. Number 20. The curse of knowledge is when we have become so familiar with what we know that we forget what it's like not to know. Abby, take it away.
My first job was at a retirement home. I worked as a server in the home's restaurant, serving dinner to the residents. I had not worked a day in my life prior to this job, unless you count selling Girl Scout cookies, let alone had I worked a serving job. When I first started working, I was overwhelmed. There was so much I needed to learn, from how to use the POS system to how to properly open the walk-in freezer. I had 4 days of training where experienced servers showed me the ups and downs of the restaurant. When I finished training, I was still so nervous before every shift. I didn't want to get anything wrong, and I put all of my effort into every shift I worked. My downtime was spent walking through the dining room, seeing if any tables needed help, or in the kitchen, seeing if the food runners needed any help. I was constantly trying to be a better server and learn more about how to do so. After over a year of working as a server, I've noticed a great shift in my habits. My downtime is spent on my phone in the back, and I'm less adamant about getting everything perfectly right. I used to constantly check in with my tables, maybe even a little too much. Now I have to constantly remind myself to check back in with my section. When I first started working, I didn't know the first thing about being a server. After countless shifts, serving became my second nature. I knew the ins and outs of the restaurant, memorizing everything from every resident's name to every item on our daily changing menu. I felt as if there was nothing more for me to learn, so my performance decreased. If you're eager to learn, you proactively seek that knowledge, and for me, it was by working as hard as I could. I became so familiar with my job that I lost that sense of urgency, willingness, and attentiveness that I had when I was first hired. The same goes for many concepts, such as driving. When I was first learning how to drive, I would look over my shoulder at least 3 times before changing lanes. My eyes would be darting between the different mirror angles, making sure I was always aware of my surroundings. At red lights, I wouldn't even consider going on my phone. After driving for a year, my driving skills have definitely decreased. I don't always turn my turn signals on, I get distracted by my phone at red lights, and I'm less cautious when changing lanes or moving around. In just a year, I've become so familiar with knowing how to drive that I've become a noticeably worse driver. Though knowledge is a gift, there are downsides to it that often go unrecognized. As this KloobySnack says, we can become so familiar with what we know that we lose sight of our original eagerness to know.
Wow. Oh, wow. All right. So this is super cool for a bunch of reasons. I'm gonna, I guess, stop. Well, no, I don't know if I'm gonna stop sharing. I was just, you could still see
Yeah.
the screen. So a couple of things here, Abigail. First of all, just let me ask you. This might be the first time that you read this since
Yeah.
you wrote it many, many months ago. So let me ask you to reflect on your own journal entry and see what you're getting from it here. I mean, it was this is very striking. My first job was a retirement home. That pops. But talk to me about what you're feeling now as you reread this for the first time in several
Yeah.
months.
Well, since writing this, I no longer will like actively work there. I'm still technically hired, but not like on a consistent schedule.
Mhm.
But so like this exact anecdote doesn't necessarily apply to my life now, but conceptually, like it does. And there's a lot of things where I notice just me putting less effort into certain things, such as even with school, where I'm putting less effort into the classes I have now than I did in the beginning of the class, because now I know how it goes and I know how to like easily get the grade that I want, and I'm putting less effort in because I feel like I know. So conceptually, I still do see the curse of knowledge throughout um, my life. And you know, I think it is a good thing. Like I am very proud of myself for learning how to, as my first job, like freshly 16, learning how to like navigate this full, like not even just a restaurant, but also being in a retirement home and helping with the caregivers and all this stuff. It was so overwhelming, and I am like proud of myself for figuring all of that out. But then also at the time, like I did recognize that like after figuring all of it out, I was not the effort just decreased. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, there's a couple of things that I find interesting about this entry. First of all, a nod to your vulnerability, right? Where there's been other times in this project or elsewhere where you've admitted, let's say, an unwillingness to admit when you're wrong, right? But here you are actually vulnerably sharing the self-reflection and something you're sharing info that's like less becoming, right? I
mhm,
wasn't working as hard. I'm not driving as well. I'm right.
yeah,
That's so there's a vulnerability in publicly and in writing and published on Amazon and out there in the world, to go ahead and own your stuff. I think that's mature of you. I don't know if I would have been so willing to admit anything unbecoming about
yeah,
myself, at your age or even at my age now, right? I guess I do poke fun at myself a bit now, but so there's that. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that your interpretation of this snack is another icon of how they can create their own meaning or they go in other directions, or it's one of the things that makes me curious about what other people think of the KloobySnacks when I see the difference in what's on my mind when I come up with it and how you take it and go, right? So if you look at, and I'm going to go back to screen sharing because I think there's a couple of passages that really denote this. So when you talk about constantly trying to be a better server and right, did not know. So here's the thing. What are you saying right here? Eager to learn, proactively seek out knowledge, right? I was working. Okay. So you're talking about your own effort, right? You're talking about how the curse of knowledge affects your own effort, your own behavior, your own sense of what's good enough, right? Or what it will take, or is juice worth the squeeze, or you follow? And I think that's pretty cool. It also comes up here because look at the way this looks. This is what I thought was more remarkable. As this KloobySnack says, right, we become so familiar with, we lose sight of our original eagerness to know, which is part of forgetting what it's like not to know. But what I'm really getting at, like where the core of this KloobySnack, the curse of knowledge, is that when we have forgotten what it's like not to know what we know, then we end up failing at our communication of our knowledge. You follow? So there's a concept in communication around meaning making, right, called encoding and decoding, right? So encoding is when we have thoughts, ideas, or feelings, and then we encode the thoughts, ideas, or feelings to make them observable, right? So we encode them non-verbally or verbally or a combination of, right? And then decoding, of course, is when we make an observation of a piece of stimuli in the world, and then we decide what that means. So stimuli then becomes thoughts, ideas, and so we got thoughts, ideas, and feelings encoded into a piece of stimuli that's observable, and then decoded. Okay, so what I'm getting at in that scenario is that if I have forgotten what it is like not to know, then that cripples my encoding, right? And so here's what I want to say to you is, like as a parent, in the context of KloobySnacks, right? This is one of these opportunities for me to say, hey, Abby, I'm so sorry for all of the times that I've communicated to you, like with an expectation that you just, don't you know? Don't you get it? Why don't you understand? That type of thing, right? And it's like, well, wait a second. I'm so familiar with what I know that maybe I've forgotten what it's like not to know.
Yeah.
And now if I'm communicating, I might be skipping steps or might be choosing language or failing to choose language or failing to have the patience or failing to seek the feedback. And I'm like kind of skipping right to, I can't believe you don't know. Like, right. Or some manifestation of that, when really the burden is on me to realize, you know what I'm saying? So the quote comes from like an encoding and decoding challenge, right? Like you say, oh, you're talking over their heads, or hey, get rid of the jargon, or hey, can you say that in English, please? You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. And I'm aware of this in many other contexts, like when I'm helping people with branding. It's part of the formula is to get rid of the jargon and replace it with slogan. So like, for example, I'd always joke when I'm doing public speaking, are you ready? Like, I don't say, I listen carefully to people's word choices that give me access to their limiting beliefs, which I then replace with empowering alternatives and then condition to a point of transformation. I don't say that. They say, hey, I do the checkup from the neck up and get you out of your own way so you can go make better decisions, have the life and career you want. So checkup from neck up is more digestible, right? Or say, hey, we help people get out of their own way. And that's more like, okay, yeah, I know all this language around mindset and intervention and, the site drivers of inner psychology and all that. But if I start using those terms just because I got familiar with them, I might lose my audience.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, one of the things that's remarkable about the passage that you wrote is that number one, it looks within, it does so vulnerably, right? And fearlessly, courageously. I admire you on that. I wish I had that fearlessness, that courage, that wear it on my sleeve. It's unbelievable. But then also you focused on your behavior or desire to know more, which wasn't really the focus that I had in mind. You follow when I wrote it. When I wrote it, it was like, oh, people don't understand what you're saying if you're lost in your jargon and if your sense of self is not situationally aware, about the difference in the knowledge gaps, right? So what's your take on that perspective? I just wanted to
I didn't think about that. This is one of the KloobySnacks that after seeing it, I didn't ask you about or ask you to ask for your anything. I literally saw it, and the second I saw it, I was like, oh, this is what it means. Like I so clearly was thinking about working at the retirement home and becoming so familiar with the ins and outs of the retirement home that my effort decreased and just overall like performance, um, it wasn't bad, but decreased.
Hmm.
And like I immediately saw it as that. So it's interesting to see the other or like what your initial intentions were. Um, yeah, I never thought about it like that at all. But it's interesting to see how versatile it is, and also just like overall the curse of knowledge and all of the outcomes of it.
Yeah, and that so that's that's fun because it's fun for me to see how you interpret these things.
Mhm.
It's fun to see the difference. So like the Kluby Snacks ends up having more life, more legs, more reach, more possibilities than just whatever is in my crazy mind at the time I come up with it. And I'm looking right now, actually, yeah. So check this out. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna screen share and show you what I mean, just to make it part of the recording, and because this is such a personal project for us, but like it's still connected to what I do in
Mhm.
my world, right? So back to this is like my resource packet for the course that I teach in public speaking, and when we go to the very first discussion on what is communication, right? There's three things I focus on in this conversation. Now, hey, students out there, if you want to read a 20 to 30 page chapter in a textbook, right on. But I've already read a couple of them, and here's what I think you need to know. You need to know what are the ingredients of communication. You need to understand what we bring to communication. And by the way, these things make up what I call our filters. This is what we pull from when we're encoding and decoding. So when we're encoding, we pull from our culture, values, attitudes, beliefs, personal past experiences, even our physicality and heredity are the other things. So this is heredity and this is personal and past experiences. And so that's what helps us determine what words we choose, or what expressions or what sayings or how we package our thoughts, ideas, and feelings into observable stimuli. But then, so that's right here. That's the process of encoding is what would go in that blank right there. Encoding.
Mhm.
Okay. But then receivers convert stimuli, and it shouldn't be messages to be technical. It's convert stimuli into thoughts and meanings. That's when they become messages. So it's just a piece of stimuli, right? Like mom, MOM,
Mhm.
somebody whose mom is alive is going to make different meaning of MOM than someone whose mom isn't, right?
Mhm.
Somebody who is a mom is going to make different meaning of MOM than somebody who is not a mom,
Mhm.
right? Somebody who's currently happy in their relationship is going to make a different meaning, right? So in other words, it's just stimuli until the receiver
Mhm.
creates their meaning. And so what determines meaning is our values, attitudes, beliefs, past experiences, etc. So the curse of knowledge is when we're encoding, when we're converting our thoughts and our ideas into observable messages, we might be choosing symbols that are only available to us at our knowledge, when we need to be choosing symbols that are going to be more readily understood by the audience, the listener, the reader, right, the other person in the relationship. So that's where primarily the Kluby snack comes from at origination,
Mhm.
right? But you wisely expand our understanding of the snack to, hey, it's going to affect more than just our encoding. It's going to affect more than just our communication and relationships when we're you know
Mhm.
you're talking above, around, over, through. And sometimes we rely on our knowledge as a comfort zone and as a form of ammunition or protection without even realizing it,
Mhm.
right? But you're saying, well, look, not you draw our attention to not just encoding my thoughts in a way that isn't easy to understand by somebody who doesn't know what I know, but you expand this Kluby snack to reach looking within at our own behavior, looking within at our own desire to learn more. And I
Yeah.
think that that's fascinating. And I'd like to see if you have anything more to say about
Yeah,
that.
I think that part of it is like there's overall like struggle, any form of struggle, like if that's like confusion or um just anything difficult, just any struggle. I think that there is benefit to that, and it makes you put in the effort. It makes it like that's where the effort comes from, effort to overcome that struggle. So for me in the situation with working, it was just completely feeling lost. I'm thrown into an apron and given a notepad, and it's like, okay, now you have to learn all of these residents' names and learn how to work this computer thing that's not really a computer, and take all these orders and memorize all of their allergies because like they don't remember them. And all of this stuff. And that was overwhelming. And I sitting there 16, like my first ever job, just like, what? But that struggle and that confusion is what motivated me to learn all of their names and learn how to work the computer with my eyes closed and have all of their restrictions memorized and learn all their family members' names and all this stuff. Like the struggle is what motivated me to do that. And then once I overcame the struggle, then it's like, then it's my responsibility to motivate myself or to find some other thing to motivate me, whether that's just me wanting to be a good server or if it's the tips or whatever it is, to find
whatever the form of growth is,
you know,
right? Personal,
But I think that for me, I overcame the struggle of the confusion and just being overwhelmed with this whole completely new environment. And once I overcame the struggle, I wasn't searching for or tapping into anything else to motivate me to continue to like keep that effort or maintain the effort or increase my effort. I didn't look for anything else. And I think that, and I'm not saying I was a bad server. I was a good server, but I could tell that like I wasn't touching it with my tables as much, and I was forgetting things more that I would never normally forget, and like little things. And then from that, then I became more overwhelmed than I was when I'd begun. And I'm like, then I'm all more stressed out, and then the struggle continues, and then I motivated again. It's a whole cycle. But I think that constantly finding some sort of motivator, whatever it is, to continue to help you maintain that effort is important, rather than overcoming one thing and then just assuming that like then you're done. I think that always having some sort of motivation or something to keep you driven and help you maintain that effort, which I think that I wasn't doing at first, but after recognizing that, especially after writing this KloobySnack, because I hadn't really sat and thought about it until writing it. But I think especially after writing that, now it's like for me, like with school, when it's like I can tell, especially with like senioritis, like my effort has just decreased in school. It's really hard to stay fully engaged, or at least as engaged as I was the first 3.5 years. So
this is a really good lesson.
So now it's something else. So now it's like my whole motivator is like, well, I need to make sure I can still take good notes and do all of this stuff so that next year in college I'll be fine. So now it's using that as the motivator. Whereas before it was making sure I can get into college. And now it's like, okay, now I'm in, now what? And it's like, oh no, I need to make sure I maintain these work habits. So it's constantly finding some sort of motivator to help me limit the whole senioritis. And it's
well, let's get motivated to pay for college. How about that? but I'm going to draw one more wave of attention to what I think you've done here beautifully, Abigail, is expanding the reach of the KloobySnack. Again, this is what it says, that we forget what it's like not to know, right? And then back to your interpretation, we lose sight of our original eagerness. So now you're talking about the eagerness to, rather than the status of. It really expands the reach of this heads up on cursive knowledge and what we're familiar with, and what that may blind us to, or what that may dull in us, what we may take for granted. It's and I just think it's special for you to point out the excitement that we can reflect on, when excited to know, eager to know, you can't stop me from knowing. Like sometimes I have students where I'll say to them what one of my professors said to me years ago when I got really excited about what I was learning. You could see it. And I'm like, I was proposing to him my idea for a master's thesis. I'm like, oh, I know what I want to do for my master's. And And like 10 minutes later, he says, that's great, Jeff, but we can only give you 1 degree. In other words, he was saying that I was so excited that what I had verbalized was enough work for 2 or 3 different master's theses, right? Like, oh, what a feeling to reflect on when you have that unbridled excitement and you juxtapose it so beautifully in the way that you've written with this image of being on your phone in the back of the restaurant, like literally like wasting time, not growing at all, just comfortable and complacent. And what you recognize is you're actually regressing. Right. And I just think that it's just wonderful that you were able to elaborate on this snack and interpret it in that way and give it more light and give it more breadth and give it more depth and give it more impact. So props to you, girlfriend.
Thank you.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to say about the snack itself or the collection of snacks or the milestone of the number 20 Does
Hold
that
on. Let me,
strike you at all as interesting that it's
it's weird.
2-0? Like
Yeah.
two, yeah.
Hold on, wait. I'm looking at next week's. I'm looking at the view. I don't know. I'm excited. It's weird. We're really like pushing through. I think once we finish this flavor, this baker's dozen, then it's gonna be like
It's going to get a little bit more. Yeah, it's interesting. There's been some heavy KloobySnacks. There's been some thought provocation. We've gotten into critical thinking. We've gotten into vulnerability. We've gotten into letting go. We've gotten into looking within. We've gotten into staying curious. We've gotten into, the power of questions. I mean, we've covered a lot
yeah.
in our KloobySnack so far. But I think that, as you said, what you just said, I think that you're right that as we get into the second half of the year and the last two Baker's Dozens, we're going to get into discipline flavored
Ugh.
and then integrity flavored. So loving and ego are kind of like, warming us up to, we're going to be looking within a lot, but hopefully because we're doing it through KloobySnacks, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's creative. It's open-ended. It's, everybody's invited, the whole thing. It's just wonderful to do these live streams with you every week, Abby. The book, it just gives so much pleasure and so much. It's just a simple little book, right? But it really packs a punch. All right, so here we are at last call for jokes or comments or riddles or haikus, limericks, or expressions of gratitude. Is there anything else you'd like to say or ask or share before we dismiss for this week?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. All I can think about is New York. That's all I can think about. That's all I've been thinking about. Those are all my only thoughts. So
yeah. Well, you're getting closer. You're getting closer.
So excited. The year's moving back fast, and the KloobySnacks are like a reminder of how fast we're moving. Every week I come on, and it's like the number just keeps getting higher, and I'm like, wow. Like,
yeah, well, it's interesting that you said, like, I didn't say anything when you said it originally, but now that you said what you just said, I'm going to say it. You're like, we're pushing through. Like, no, we're not. We're just showing up every week on schedule. We're not pushing through. We're not advancing. We're not rushing. We're not speeding up. We're just riding this wave. And
it feels very fast.
I'm going to tell you this. This is a KloobySnack, right? Time, the internet, and my love for you are all undefeated, Abigail. How about that?
How about them apples?
Yeah, how about them? All right, and if you don't have anything else for this week, I don't either. Thanks to the eyeballs that are out there online that are following us for tonight's installment of KloobySnacks. We were talking about the curse of knowledge is when we become so familiar with something we've forgotten what it's like not to know. And that creates problems, first of all, in our ability to encode our thoughts, ideas, and feelings in an understandable way. But as Abby more maturely pointed out, is our excitement to know, our eagerness to know, and then our ability to do and to behave and to perform based on complacency with what we've learned or know or where we're at, the status quo. So it's really like a call to constantly stay invested in your personal professional growth. I also like what you said. I mean, we're in last call, I guess, Abigail, but Abby, tap in. You said tap into motivation. You have training in that through theater, yeah? So you've got a competitive advantage where if the world is getting complacent and victimized by curse of knowledge, right? You've got a simple solution to offer is always remind yourself, what can I look for? What can I tap into for motivation? Is there anything you want to elaborate there on tapping in?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think so. I think I more to come in the future weeks.
Okay, all right. Well, I think it's this is a robust snack, and this is one of those snacks where your mom and I, Marianne, were like, "Wow, she's amazing."
Yeah.
Your writing, and the vivid nature, the descriptions. We were right there in the restaurant with you. We were right there in the car with you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? And very succinct, very clear, but also expansive in terms of the thought provocation that KloobySnacks are intended to offer. So wonderful, Abigail. Props to you. And we'll see everybody next week for another installment of KloobySnacks. All right. Number 21 next week. All right. Good night, everyone.